Let's head into the papers now, see what the headlines are. And I have with me in the studio a lawyer and social development advocate, Jide Ologun. Jide, good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Great. Now, let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. That's where we start from this morning. And it says, only 2 federal government isolation centers ready in Abuja. And configuration ongoing at this day dome. I guess that's for the COVID-19 isolation center. FCTA centers yet to take off, and collaboration key to success. Minister is saying this. Government should isolate all suspected cases. All right, that's what Daily Trust has. Daily Times is next now, and the focus is on coronavirus. National Assembly leadership faults the federal government's palliative scheme. Says that poorest Nigerians not captured in the intervention. And Lawan Bajabiamila want palliative scheme backed by law. Okay, that's what the Daily Times is saying. And certainly I know my guests will be interested in talking about this as we open discussions. News Direct is next now, and it's taking us to Rivers State. Magistrate Court remands 2 pilots in prison for executive order violation over COVID-19. They were said to have flown a plane into the Rivers airport without authorization. Okay, from there, let's go to Leadership newspaper now. IMF begins processing of Nigeria's request for $3.4 billion savings. Okay, and applauds PNB's economic stimulus program. And then National Assembly alleges exclusion of vulnerable Nigerians from cash transfer. And Lawan Bajabiamila meets minister, demand review. Okay, that's what you see on Leadership newspaper. Blueprint is next. COVID-19 lockdown. Nigerians still hungry or still cry of hunger. Nigerians still cry of hunger. Abuja Aba residents defy order, and we're winning the war. Our task force is saying this. Lockdown extension rests with President. Boss Mustafa is saying this. And traders arrested, 50 motorcycles seized in Abuja, and cases rise to 254. And Kwara tracing 75 contacts at 2 places there. All right, okay. Now, that's what you see on the blueprint. Okay, Jide, the story on the front page of the Daily Times is one that will certainly interest Nigerians, and I guess you would like to talk about this too. National Assembly leadership faults the federal government's palliative scheme. Now, the Minister of Information has said that I think about 2-point-something billion has been disbursed so far to Nigerians, you know, and has been given out as cash transfers. And then here in Lagos as well, there has been, you know, packs of rice going around. But Nigerians are saying that they are not getting it the way that it is not coordinated enough to get to the people who really need this palliatives. What do you make?
That is talking about the impact, and it's quite obvious. It's an overwhelming challenge for the government. And let's start from the angle of the people. The essence of governance is to care for the people, and care is made up of 4 letters, the C for concern. So what concern has the government shown towards the people, even before the arrival of COVID-19 as a crisis? So it's quite important. And the A stands for apathy. Nigerians have been asking for facilities, infrastructure, interventions, and it's as if the government has pretended to be deaf towards the people. So you don't see that, you know, emotional connection between the people and the government. And that is what COVID-19 has come to amplify. And the R stands for responsibility. This is a test of governance responsibility. And we've always reiterated it. If you look at section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it says that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. Have we driven the governance of the nation in line with this constitutional provision? The answer may be no. And the E stands for empowerment. This is a country that God has overblessed. But how have we harnessed the resources before now. In comparison, you see regions like the UAE saying we are ready for COVID-19, ready to care for our people. You see things that are going on
across the world. A lot of governments are setting up all sorts of things already.
And in our own case now, it's not absolutely that the materials may not be available, but the disbursement, the allocation.
What do you
think?
What do you think is responsible for this? Is it the lack of data, or is it just the will?
It's a combination of a whole lot of issues. Greed is involved, but I'm not surprised. Recall at a time that I think Saudi Arabia donated food materials to the IDPs, and some Nigerians cornered it. So we have greed in the land. We have subsisting corruption in the land. We have, like I said, low concern for the people. It's all about the people. If there are victims of COVID-19, they are the people. And people are even extending, okay, now the emphasis is on food. You talk about electricity, you talk about water. I mean, you need to wash your hands constantly, but I challenge the government, how many households can boast of running water from the government? So this is a time to challenge us, really. Again, I must appreciate the president for giving a directive that about 170, it was 150 trucks of seized rice be distributed to the 36 states to be released to the people. But at a point in time, the Controller General of Customs said that imported rice is poisonous. So what has happened to the poison before now? And we have also claimed that we are doing so well in local rice farming. So this COVID-19 has come to test the quality of governance. And that's why some of us are asking, that can we focus? Can we, elevate governance above politics? So it appears right now that we are just beginning to see the consequences of our governance tradition and culture over the years. I'm also relieved in a way that the DMG of NNPC is telling us that subsidy will be gone. But I'm still shocked by the fact that my country admitted spending 11 trillion naira on fuel subsidy in 6 years under recovery. We've heard about turnaround maintenance. So can we now imagine that Nigeria is a country where our refineries are functioning and we harness all the byproducts of crude oil and gas?
Well,
we can create employment. You see, can we imagine that we have electricity, we are industrialized? It will cushion the impact. Right now, admittedly, about half of the Nigerian population is within the poverty bracket. And the wealth of a nation is measured by the wealth of the people. And so these are the concerns that we have.
Do you think that the private sector should have been involved better with this palliative distribution? Would it have made any difference more than government doing it by itself?
Definitely. I can assure you that even private individuals are doing a lot to reach out to the people. It's all about, like I said, about the greed. You hear stories like about a quarter bag given to persons of about how many population? How will that go around? And yet some of the party chieftains may roll in bags into their custody. These are the things we are saying. And I don't even want to discuss the issue of who exactly is getting this money, the fact that some people have been receiving money from government silently underneath. So my advice remains the same. Can we come together as a people and realize that the resources of this world is meant for people to enjoy? And how can we harness it? We have complained about not being able to produce electricity because of gas. But I know that my great nation has the largest deposit of proven gas in Africa, you see, and you talk about the huge resources that we have. In Zamfara State alone.
They all remain potentials, so long as it's not been translated.
State alone, sir, the gold deposit in Zamfara can earn that state $2 billion annually. And you saw how we lost about 353 billion naira to illegal miners. So when you see all these crises coming together, I mean, COVID-19 has come to show us that as you lay your bed, you lie on it. We really express apathy towards Nigerians now. We have to go through what we are going through. But the government must now realize that when we call for sustainable development, it's not just because of the poor. It's because that everybody can be affected with our health facilities and everything. So let's enjoy the goodies of this world while we are here. We are all in it. We all own it. It's
so
sovereign
we
wealth.
don't wait to go to heaven to enjoy all of what heaven has to
And God
offer.
has blessed us abundantly.
Right. Thank you very much, Jide Ologun, for your time on the program.
God bless Nigeria.
Right. Let's head into the papers now, see what the headlines are. And I have with me in the studio a lawyer and social development advocate, Jide Ologun. Thank you very much, Jide, for joining us. Thank you. Now, Daily Trust is where we start from this morning. Daily Trust newspaper says only 2 federal government isolation centers ready in Abuja. And configuration on ongoing at this day dome. And then FCTA centers yet to take off. Collaboration key to success, as the minister is saying that, and government should isolate all suspected cases. That's an advice from an opinion there. Now, Daily Trust, that's what it has. Daily Times is where we go next, and coronavirus is the focus. National Assembly leadership faults federal government's palliative scheme. It says that the poorest Nigerians not captured in the intervention. Lawan by Jabian Miller want palliative scheme backed by law. Okay, that's the Daily Times. News Direct is next now, and it's taking us to River State. Magistrate Court remands 2 pilots imprisoned for executive order violation over COVID-19. They are all in the correctional center. All right, the leadership newspaper is next now. IMF begins processing of Nigeria's request for $3.4 billion loan. Okay, certainly we'll be talking about this shortly now. And from there, Blueprint is next, and it focuses on the COVID-19 lockdown on Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint newspaper says Nigerians still cry of hunger. Nigerians still cry of hunger, and it has a lot of multiple writers there on some other issues. Now, Jide, I wonder if you are concerned about the issue of borrowings that we have been talking about over the years. Now, at this COVID-19 time right now, Nigerians are saying, of course, because the point there is it looks really obvious that many countries have to borrow, to keep afloat, to keep their economies afloat. Nigeria is not left out. But the point there is the burden of the borrowings in the past is one thing, and right now this is going to also add up to that weight on it as well. What do you see? What are your concerns?
If borrowing is not relevant in business, it won't be there to start with. But I think the important thing is what you do with what you have borrowed. And I believe that the total indebtedness of my great country before COVID-19 was in the region of about 25 point something trillion. And the big question is that if we have invested that very well, we should not be the capital of poverty today. So if we are going borrowing, it's because we have not invested our resources properly. And the big question now is that what is the assurance and the guarantee that the future will be brighter? And that can only come into manifestation if we change our governance mindset and focus on what is important. I like to echo Sheikh Zayed of the UAE of blessed memory, the man who translated a desert to an earthly paradise. The man said that wealth is not money, but investing in people. And he said our oil money will not always be there. And look at what that man did. And because of that deliberate action, he has attracted wealth into the UAE. I think in 2018, you'll be amazed at the number of persons going in there to deposit wealth. And I think that is what we should be. And this COVID-19 has given us the opportunities, all right? Let's assume that the global lockdown extends for 1 year, and we cannot import PMS, we cannot import spare parts, we cannot import medicals, we cannot, a lot of things that we've been comfortable importing. What will happen to Nigeria? Where are the industries? Now I'm happy that the House of Reps claim to be coming up with a law that will give Nigerians electricity for 2 months freely. These things are possible.
But some other persons are saying that the companies that are running this are also private companies. And what will government do? They are talking of reducing the price instead of giving a free waiver where free electricity for Nigerians.
It's all a matter of prioritization. I was one of those calling on the National Assembly that can you shut down because of the level of insecurity in Nigeria. And they pretended as if they were not hearing us. Have they not shut down because of COVID-19? Where there is a will, there is a way. Recently, we read how the Chadian president led the troop to bombard Boko Haram and even release some Nigerian soldiers. So when we get to that point where we decide to maximize our resources, whether internally generated or borrowed, like I said, there's nothing wrong with borrowing, then we will rise above where we are. Let me give you a practical example because I've been monitoring states across the country. You look at Cross River State, for example, with Professor Benedict Ayade as the governor. Do you know there's a garment factory that has been established in that state even before COVID-19 arrived? And they are mass producing face and nose mask, giving the residents freely to prevent, because they don't have a case of COVID-19 within that environment. And they are distributing food to the vulnerable. And quite a quantity of this food being produced, because I monitor the agro investment going on there. You talk about captive electricity, you talk about the fertilizer firm, you talk about the chicken plants and different kinds of investments going on there. In fact, one of the efforts is the fact that there is a superhighway that will reduce about 7 hours travel time from Katsina to the port in Calabar, from 7 hours to about 2 hours, to bridge the business gap. You see, so if we can rise up and look at our potentials, I've told us, you talk about producing cement, almost all the raw materials are here. We are talking about chloroquine, almost all the raw materials are here. I grew up in Okakoko in Ondo State. We used to drink dogoyaro, and malaria used to run away from us. We are over-resourced as a nation. But I just want to warn that the borrower is a slave to the lender.
All right.
And at this point in time, I think my country should look inwards.
Okay.
And the singular factor that will help us is to go back to the point of our unity and have a United States of Nigeria that we look at the resources we have, see how we can unbundle the unnecessary bureaucracy and something on the exclusive legislative list. If states can manage their resources and they all support the center and the resources are managed in a way that it delivers benefits to everyone on the platform of justice and equity, this country is a great country.
All
and
right.
we are prosperous. And I hope this COVID-19 will launch us into that new governance mindset.
All right. Now, the states are also part of those who are, or part of the institutions also, or part of the request for the loans that the federal government is taking. In fact, part of the loans are taken in trust on behalf of states. Now, if you look at the budget cycle every year, you mentioned Cross River earlier on. Cross River has hit the 1 trillion mark budget annually. Lagos has also hit 1 trillion. And then other states, you know, are within the billions, hundreds of billions and all of that. If you put all of those budgets together, plus the federal budget, then the local governments also have their budget at their levels and all of that put together. Don't you think the monies for that Nigerian, that, because the point there is, if you are sitting down here as a Nigerian, the budget take cognizance of you, the Lagos State budget on its own take cognizance of you as well, the local government to which you are and you reside and work also take. The point there is, do you think there should be some level of coordination between the federal states so that this budget is meant for almost the same person, so that there can be some streamlining of agenda?
Absolutely. And I may prescribe to the government to study the template of revenue generation and management in the UK. And the UK was a colonial master, you know, centralized point but it comes to prioritization. What do you do with them? By the way, what are the basic needs in society? Healthcare is very, very important. A child is born, needs healthcare. Education comes in. You must educate this child to give this child a bright future. Then you must have a job or business empowerment for this child as this child grows up. Those basic things are the basic amenities in the society. And I have been saying it. The United Nations has simplified this by coming up with the Sustainable Development Goals as far back as 2016 that will be evaluated in 2030. How much have we keyed into it? Let's assume, for instance, that the Lagos port has been expanded, the capacity, and we have business activities booming in the country, that right now we are celebrating uninterrupted power supply, industries are springing up. It will reduce the pressure on the people. And these things are there. Whether you borrow the money or not, you are expected to be prudent. America borrows. Countries of the world borrow. But you see what they do with what they have borrowed. You see, if we have borrowed so much, and yet we cannot boast of an hospital in Nigeria that can treat my president, we are in trouble. But I always say one thing. The Chinese say that the best time to have planted a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. We can change our approach to governance. If you deploy these funds to empower the nation, we all benefit from it. Right. But when we think that it's only for the exclusive club, we can now see that COVID-19 is no respecter of the class we belong to. It's a threat to all of us. And we must enjoy the good of this nation. So we need that new mindset.
Thank you so much, Jide Ologun, for your insight into this issue.
God bless Nigeria.
Right. Let's get into the papers now, see what the headlines are in Nigeria. And I have with me in the studio lawyer and public affairs analyst here, Jide Ologun. Jide, nice to see you.
You're welcome.
Great. Good. Now, let's start with Daily Trust. Now, Daily Trust says only 2 federal government isolation centers ready in Abuja, and configuration ongoing at this day dome. The FCTA centers yet to take off, and collaboration key to success. The minister is saying that, and government should isolate all suspected cases. That's Daily Trust. Daily Times says, he's talking about coronavirus, and he says National Assembly leadership faults the federal government's palliative scheme. That's what Daily Times has. And the News Direct is next, and it takes us to River State, where magistrate court remands 2 pilots in prison for executive order violation over COVID-19. That's News Direct. Then from News Direct, let's go to the Leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper says IMF begins processing of Nigeria's request for $3.4 billion savings. That's what Leadership has. From there, now let's go to the Blueprint newspaper that says COVID-19 lockdown, Nigerians still cry of hunger. Okay, and that is where I would like us to take it from this time around. Jide, the lockdown that is ordered in Lagos, Ogun, and Abuja. In the past few days, there has been reports that people are no longer on lockdown, and people are going out. In fact, it was reported that around Lekki Expressway there was a bumper-to-bumper traffic a few days ago. People are hungry, certainly, and there are a lot of people who they eat based on what they do today. So what do you make of all of this?
We need to just learn a lesson that we must improve on the quality of our economy. Like you brilliantly mentioned now, a lot of people earn wages. They must come out every day to work, to make a living. So how do they comply with the stay-at-home order? Came as a shock to many. No one expected that would be where we are today in January. And that also brings us to planning by extension. I came up with a concept of 1,000 naira daily at a time. I used to ask the question, and I'm asking you, Mr. Mike, if you save 1,000 naira daily from January 1 to December 31, how much do you have at the end of the year?
Well, that's a lot of money. You are going to have over 300,000.
Exactly. So
now, a friend of mine was trying to take me back to the days where we had the colo box,
exactly,
and then you just threw the piggy bank,
exactly,
and then you just threw something in.
It's a function of discipline. And if you started that in 2018, for instance, and you upscale it to 2,000 in 2019, and you started with 3,000 in 2020, by now you should have something set aside, because they say that it never hurts to be proactive. So, and I think COVID-19 also has come to re-emphasize the need for home economics. Children are at home now, they must eat. So you need to maximize resources within the home front. And right now, people have been able to differentiate between their needs and their greed. There were a lot of things that appear to be part of normal life that have been taken away from us now, and yet we are still there. And again, another concept is people are asked to stay at home, the electricity, for some, the bill of having to buy fuel for a generator. And so these are issues that should come into how we operate going forward. And hunger is a critical thing. But I have been monitoring the governance process. At a time, I understand there was a report that someone said that there is no hunger in Nigeria, and that billions of naira have been disbursed to people. And even the National Assembly is saying that the way this money is being disbursed, they are in questionable
the poorest people
manner.
are not captured.
And at a time, I think in 2019, the Minister of Agriculture also said that there is no hunger in Nigeria, that we have abundance of food. And I have questioned this morning, if we have done so much as reported in the diversification into rice planting and agriculture, then we should have enough now to feed the people, rather than reverting to the seized imported rice. But we thank God for that. So it should make us to plan. You may be shocked that some countries have food bank that can take them for over 25 years. So these are the things we should be focusing on. And it's at the governmental level, federal, state, local government. And this is the time to also realize the importance of local government. We are talking about transferring these palliatives to the people. Where is the role? In where I live, we have the CDA, I'm the legal advisor. I can identify those within my community. Are we driving through that channel? Are we using political channels? All these things are relevant. If you focus on caring for the people, you design a channel that will help you achieve that. So it has to be part of our culture. And you mentioned data. It's not as if we don't have data in Nigeria. We do. We have data to collect taxes, to collect revenue, to increase value-added tax, to collect estimated bills and things like that. We have this data. We have the BVN, we have all this. But what do we do with it? It shouldn't be a one-way traffic.
In fact,
as you take from the people, deploy it also to reach out to the people.
Yes, I was going to renew my international passport, and I discovered that I was given a brand new number. And I was wondering, why don't we, if you've issued out a number, why don't you maintain the number that one has been given over the time?
These things are
every
intentional.
time you renew your passport, they give you a new
we can
number.
streamline it. We have our permanent voter's card, which you are not going to change anyway. The records are there. You have your BVN. And so if we really want to start preparing for another external shock that may come, because this did not start in Nigeria, and we thank God for that. It started in China, and China appeared to have been prepared. I don't know why.
But as it is, does it even matter where it starts from? Because so long as the impact is going to be felt everywhere.
We should learn from the world. Japanese government is saying, no, we have to care for our people. So when the focus is caring for the people, you learn so much, and you upgrade your capacity. But for the people also, we need to pay attention to home economics. We need to pay attention to understanding one another, talking about couples, talking about children. This is a brilliant time of fellowship. Many have complained that they are tired of staying at home, and I keep encouraging them. There are things we should be doing at the home level that the hustle and bustle lifestyle has prevented us from doing. All right.
One other issue I'd like to take you to that is also on the papers is the story on News Direct. In Rivers State, the magistrate court remands 2 pilots in prison for executive order violation over COVID-19. Now, the point there is the airspace in Nigeria has been closed. International flights and even local flights, none is working right now. So for 2 pilots to, fly a plane into Port Harcourt with passengers, where the status of all of the people on board were not known, I wonder what you make of this.
It's a test of our system. Beyond what the government has done, which is commendable, it must have been a process. Who were those involved in even packaging that trip? And the government has done well, perhaps because this is a disease that is a threat to both the high and the lowly. And again, that is a point we need to note in governance. You must be vigilant. And thank God for the governor of Rivers State for doing that. There was another report also of how about 35 Americans were flown into Nigeria. They were screened and cleared at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos. And they embarked on another trip to Cross River State. And Governor Benedict Ayade said, no, you cannot come into my state. And they reportedly, they were to be NNPC staff. And the governor said, I doubt if we have NNPC installation in Calabar. So what are they coming to do at a time like this? And he turned them back. You see, there is a need for protection. And I think beyond what the governor has done in Rivers State, he should also try to trace those they have contacted. Because whether we want to throw away the conspiracy theory or not, things are happening around the world. And a lot of things are shrouded in secrecy. And there are clear evidence that people are rolling out, that we are seeing it in our community. We are seeing this. Can somebody explain this? So while we are trying to deal with this mystery, we must ensure that we contain it. Unfortunately for Nigeria, we have not even recorded epidemic, talk less of pandemic, that is experienced at the global level. In fact, the United Nations has commended Nigeria in how we've been able to handle the COVID-19 like we did Ebola. So, and if we channel this same zeal and passion towards generality of driving the governance process, we arrive somewhere. So those are the responsibility aspects of governance, to protect the people. Because if those pilots were allowed like that, and you saw what happened in Lagos also, though people are still debating that, how some flouted the social distance by having party after
exactly.
party.
I was just going to mention
said,
that.
No, we need to prosecute. So whether we embark on these legalistic arguments or not, the government has a role to regulate the activities of people within the community and to prevent people from harm. Okay. All right? And speaking economically, I'm just advising this morning. One of my lecturers, when I went back to study public relations, asked us a question in class, that how many of you can stay off work for 6 months and still survive? That if that is not your case, you are not in business. So I want everybody to sit down this morning, look at your business, look at your life, and imagine that you have a lockdown for 6 months. Can you cope? And that will redirect how you manage
level of thinking.
Affairs.
All
and
right.
Finally, you know there's a difference between asset and liability. Liability may appear glamorous, but anything that takes money away from you is a liability, whether you qualify it as asset. And asset is something that brings money to you, because as we speak now, some businesses are springing up. In fact, a young man just sent a message to me that, sir, I have set up a studio in my apartment. I said, God bless you. So you need to review your business processes. Okay. And at the national level, please, our dear leaders, let's migrate towards prosperity. We have the resources, and God will help us.
We all have what it takes as far as the country is concerned. Jide Ologun, thank you so much for your time on the program.
God bless Nigeria.
Right.